Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here. I'm not going to have any questions for Director Cordray. Since you've already testified 12 times, CFPB officials have testified more than 30 times. You've been an open book. I think there's been a lot of transparency, and you've won widespread praise for both your balance and your judgment. But I do have questions. What I want to know is why, since the 1800s, have there been agencies all over Washington with a single director, including the OCC, but unlike the Consumer Agency, no one in the U.S. Senate has held up confirmation of their directors demanding that the agency be redesigned. What I want to know is why every banking regulator since the Civil War has been funded outside the appropriations process, but unlike the Consumer Agency, no one in the United States Senate has held up confirmation of their directors demanding that that agency or those agencies be redesigned. And what I want to know is why there are agencies all over Washington whose rules are final, subject to the ordinary reviews and oversight, while the CFPB is the only agency in government subject to a veto by other agencies. But unlike the CFPB, no one in the U.S. Senate holds up confirmation of their directors demanding that those agencies be redesigned. From the way I see how other agencies are treated, I see nothing here but a filibuster threat against Director Cordray as an attempt to weaken the Consumer Agency. I think the delay in getting him confirmed is bad for consumers, it's bad for small banks, it's bad for credit unions, it's bad for anyone trying to offer an honest product in an honest market. The American people deserve a Congress that worries less about helping big banks and more about helping regular people who've been cheated on mortgages, on credit cards, on student loans, on credit reports. I hope you get confirmed. You have earned it, Director Cordray. So, my questions are for Ms. White. Thank you very much. We've gotten a sense of you as a rule writer, and I'm glad as a prosecutor. But I want to ask a couple of questions around rule writing, and actually I'm going to start in the same place many of my colleagues have, and that is to talk about the things that have not yet been done. In fact, I'll just make a little note here. The Consumer Agency has met virtually all of its rule writing deadlines. The SEC has missed about half of them so far. But everyone's been highlighting the rules that they want to make sure that you focus on. I just want to draw a line under 4 of them that the SEC has not yet written any rules for. There are still no rules for credit rating agencies that took money to sign off on risky deals that crash the economy and still operate with big conflicts of interest. There are still no rules from the SEC to deal with the derivatives that were right at the heart of the financial crisis. There are still no rules from the SEC to protect the counties and towns that were cheated. There are still no rules from the SEC to require disclosure of CEO pay relative to regular employees' pay. So if people are going to talk about priorities, I certainly hope that those are all near the top of your list. But one other thing I want to ask you about rule writing, because it came up earlier in the discussion, is the economic analysis or the cost-benefit analysis. You know, it's fairly easy to measure the costs of implementing a regulation. But what about the costs of under-enforcing the rules? So what are the costs of people being cheated on mortgages and credit cards? What are the costs when money launderers are not prosecuted? What are the costs when big financial institutions crash our economy? So my question is, how do you make sure that when we're talking about cost-benefit, that the costs, not just of enforcing regulations, but the costs of under-enforcing those regulations is also accounted for, Ms. White?
I appreciate the question. I think it also relates to
measuring the benefits. I mean, I think it's kind of at least a similar issue, if not the same. I mean, and again, one of the things that I, if confirmed, want to do first also when I get to the SEC is to really bore into exactly how this is being done. I also have the concern, as we all do, even though in terms of having our rules upheld by the courts, which that needs to happen as well. But I think we have to recognize that there are some benefits, the cost of under-enforcement, that have to be analyzed on their terms. In other words, that you have to say, if you can't quantify, you say why you can't quantify, or perhaps you do quantify, but you use a different parameter to do it. So I fully take your point.
Okay, thank you very much. I see my time is up. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.